Hello and welcome to another bowel-tremblingly thrilling episode of TechSpert Weekly, and you join us in somewhat of a crisis mode. I've been hitting the booze supplies a bit too hard and all that's left is the gin miniatures. At this rate I'm going to have to start on the bleach smoothies soon. Anyway, this week I was hoping to review the snazzy new Apple Vision Pro, because why simply check your messages on your phone like John and Jane Public, when you can instead strap a silly looking yet ludicrously expensive plastic helmet onto your bonce and reply to emails by swatting the air like you're being attacked by angry invisible wasps. Sadly, my review unit appears to have got lost in the post, and I didn't fancy spending $3,000 on something that'll make me look like a third-rate stormtrooper who just had most of his gear mugged off him. So instead, I'll be reading Nintendo Switch 2 rumour roundups off of the internet for your viewing pleasure. It's the hot content your face has been crying out for. TechSpert Weekly! Now, the Nintendo Switch is now rather terrifyingly 7 years old, so if it was a human, it would have progressed well past the pant-filling dribbly stage and moved on to the nicking fivers out of its mum's handbag for big bags of Haribo stage. In all of that time, we have seen a slight refresh in the Switch OLED, although even that was way back in 2021, when I had possibly slightly more hair as well as one or two f***s actually left to give. And of course, Nintendo also pumped out a slightly cheaper alternative model for skintfolk in the Switch Lite. But so far there's been subtle sign of a proper true sequel boasting a higher definition display, beefier performance and all the other spangly stuff that fans have been absolutely crying and throwing fits over. Well, Nintendo fans, good news, it's time to pull on the splash-proof pants, because all those online leaks and rumours are pointing to a 2024 launch for the Switch 2/Switch Pro/ whatever the hell it's going to be called. Now, one of the biggest upgrades you can expect for the Switch 2 is a massive boot up the posterior for the performance. After all, in the past couple of years alone, we've seen literally quite a few game and handheld consoles released, with enough swagger to run the latest PC titles, usually without completely dropping a bollock or two. Meanwhile, more demanding titles usually have to be optimised before they can even run on the Nintendo Switch, and even then the frame rate can often be politely described as total arse biscuits. Now, Nintendo decided to stick with the same Tegra X1 brains for the OLED model, but you can expect some fresh and tasty Nvidia silicon to be stuffed inside of the Switch 2, possibly the leaked T239. And without diving into the geeky spec stuff, which frankly is about as exciting as the Derwent Pencil Museum, it looks like this clever chip should handle most modern games without much of a strain. A recent report also reckons the next Nintendo handheld will sport an 8-inch display, so it's grown a whole inch over that OLED model, which was already bigger than the original. Although that same report also claims the Switch 2 will ship with an LCD display like the original Switch, rather than another snazzy OLED panel. And I really hope this turns out to be total trouser, or at the very least that Nintendo releases an OLED model alongside an LCD version, because if I have to go back to an LCD panel after enjoying the OLED for so long, well, I'll be so cross that I might say a naughty word or two. After all, returning to the original Switch after playing with the gorgeous OLED version is like moving to Wolverhampton after living literally anywhere else on Earth. And yes, that includes a damp cave somewhere in Siberia. At least there you'll probably have some interesting moss to stare at. And while some handheld consoles still make do with an HD display, including the fresh new Steam Deck OLED with its 800p panel, it's certainly not impossible that Nintendo could boost the resolution on the Switch 2 to Full HD for a sharper gaming experience on the go. Of course, having a Switch that runs games natively at 1080p could have some negative effects as well. For one, it could absolutely knacker the battery life. And God knows I don't want Nintendo to make up for this by expanding the Switch to the size of the Steam Deck or any of these other recent handheld consoles. Because whenever I actually bugger off on a trip, the only handheld console I even consider taking is the Nintendo Switch. So if I took the Steam Deck or the ROG Ally or whatever, I wouldn't have any space in my bag for any spare pants or, more crucially, shag loads of duty-free booze. However, that Nvidia chip could support a clever pants feature called DLSS, which can not only boost a supported game's frame rate but also upscale the graphics. So a game running at 720p could actually look like a spangly Full HD affair on an upgraded screen. We're talking fluid performance and slick visuals without kicking the battery life right in the danglies. And if rumours about Nvidia's new chip are true, we might be able to enjoy a good bit of 4K action when the Switch 2 is docked, giving us more of an excuse to whip it out at home as well as on the move. Of course, word is that Nintendo's new one won't be launching for a good few months yet. So if you're not the patient type and you fancy a meaty 7-incher to keep you amused on those boring train journeys, well, just check out my roundup of the very best handheld consoles you can buy right now. So that's what we think we know so far about the new Nintendo Switch 2. Definitely let us know what's gone through that pink squidgy thing inside your head down in the comments below. And now it's time for the part of the show that, believe it or not, is actually somehow worse than the bit that you just watched. It's viewer comments. Viewer comments. So first up this week we've got Jonathan Mallet. You read Jonathan, who says, how long does it take you to select the comment asking about your wallpapers? Speaking of which, where do you get your wallpapers? Well, ding ding f***ing ding, you're the winner this week, Johnny boy, and here's your reward. Wall.alphacoders.com, wall.alphacoders.com, that's where my wallpapers come from, wall.alphacoders.com. And Michael Ball says, I'm starting to think that you should just replace your entire viewer comment section with your wallpaper jingle played in a loop. And that is an absolutely cracking idea. Basically means I can just sit here drinking instead. Next up, Blip HN6IS says, she sells seashells by the seashore. Now you see, ordinarily that would have worked pretty well on me, but as I've already disclosed, I'm kind of running low on booze this week. So I'm actually sickeningly sober, but good try. Mythic Sons says, basically, if you bleeped out all of your swearing, changed the pitch of a few of the bleeps, and added some well-timed auto-filter and pitch shifting effects, you'd wind up sounding like R2-D2. Definitely a good reason not to do any of that then, although it does give me an idea for a new segment on this show. Instead of which crap celebrity do I look like, we could have which crap celebrity do I sound like. Now last week's burning topic was the Zenfone 11, of course, and we've had a fair bit of correspondence on this compact hero. Shu Nikigami says, with the rumoured Zenfone 11 Ultra coming along, Asus should keep the 5.9-inch display or even lower it to 5.7 inches. We really need small options. That would be cracking, but I've got to say, I just got a feeling that Zenfone 11 will have grown in size over last year's Zenfone 10. I reckon that'll be a sort of 6.2-ish inches, while the Ultra model, if there is one, will be more of a 6.6, 6.7 incher. But there's a reason I'm not a predicty, analysty guy, and that reason is usually my attempts at predicting technology trends are about as successful as my attempts to go teetotal, when I haven't just straight up run out of booze, obviously. In fact, to my recollection, there's only been one such attempt to lay off the alcohol, and that was way back in 1998. Lasted for about 24 minutes until I realised I could make hangovers go away just by drinking more. Yeah, there was actually another earlier this week which again insisted there will be a Zenfone 11 Ultra, and apparently it will more or less be a reskinned ROG Phone 8 Pro. So it reckons a 6.78-inch LTPO AMOLED display, Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 naturally, Sony IMX890 camera plus a 32-meg telephoto shooter, you've got a 5,500 mAh battery, etc, etc. All sounds alright, although I'm really hoping that they improve the camera tech for the Zenfone 11 Ultra if indeed it is a thing, because it was fine on the ROG Phone 8 Pro, but you know, as a gaming phone, the camera is kind of low priority stuff. Official RMG goes straight in there with wah. Leaks said the Zenfone 10 would be 6.3 inches last year, and clearly that wasn't the case, were it? Yeah, fair play mate, a fair few of these leaks and rumours do of course turn out to be absolute arse juice. But I don't know man, like I said, I've just got this feeling deep in my uterus that these sub 6-inch compact phones are just dead and buried. It's called the equivalent of women's intuition, you know, wanker's intuition, I guess. And Mark says, the whole point behind Zenfone was a compact flagship, so I might as well just get the S24 with 7 years of updates. But as Calvin then points out, but Exynos. You know, if you've seen my reviews of the Galaxy S24 and the S24 Plus, you'll have seen my thoughts on the Exynos 2400. It's not actually as bad as previous Exynoses at all. Don't get me wrong, Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 clearly superior, but at no point did I actually feel the need to take my Galaxy S24 or S24 Plus and hoy them into f***ing space. Of course, one of the advantages of the Galaxy S24s, as Mark previously pointed out, is the number of updates that they are due. Lots of chat here about how many updates the Zen phones are likely to get. Well, I believe it was just the 2 guaranteed OS updates for the ROG Phone 8 Pro. It's another premium priced blower, of course, so I wouldn't expect ASUS to really bump it up much for the Zen Phone 11. And yeah, that is a bit toilet, especially considering even the likes of Xiaomi are now offering minimum 3 years of OS updates. So here's hoping that ASUS ups its game. Next up, CV Tech says, I still have the Zenfone 9 and I'm not bothering with the 10 or 11. The battery life is ridiculously good. 100% hard agree with that. Absolutely stunning battery life of something so compact. Like on the average day, I would pass out before that bloody phone. Harsh XSO says, ASUS needs to introduce eSIM in their phones. That's one of the 2 things keeping me away from them. The other being the lack of telephoto cameras. Yeah, so the eSIM is very handy indeed when you're buggering off abroad somewhere where you can't take your data package, just get a local eSIM for a few days or whatever, usually costs a few quid, job done. Back on the subject of Samsung, Nikki Thompson says, I got the Samsung Galaxy S24, had it a week now and I'm enjoying it. Also received a free Galaxy Watch 6. I'm quite surprised how well the Exynos chip is doing. I'm getting near or just over 8 hours of screen on time by the time it hits around 10%. I don't play games, but I do watch some YouTube. And I'm hoping that YouTube mostly involves follically challenged British blogs banging on about phones over and over again. But yeah, for me, that's definitely the bit of the new Exynos that really impressed me, is the fact with general sort of mixed use, you generally get just as good battery life, almost as good battery life as that Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. It's only when you get proper hardcore gaming on the likes of Genshin Impact that the battery life drops significantly faster than the Snapdragon. Anyway, this is far too much serious tech chat now. I'm starting to sound like all the other boring arse YouTubers. Let's find one that's got nothing to do with tech. Here we go. Don't have to scroll very far usually. On the subject of drop bears, which one of our Aussie chums clued us into last week, apparently carnivorous koala bears which hoy themselves onto your bonds in order to chew your face off. Kieran KD says, drop bears are a bit of a copy of some of the UK's classic Brass Eye, which you should be old enough to remember. I certainly am, got it on DVD in fact. Watch out for cake and heavy electricity. That cake episode was absolutely genius, worth it alone for the bit where Bernard Manning gets genuinely upset as he tells the tale of a kid who took a new drug which caused him to cry all of the water out of his body. And of course there was the Pedogeddon special which featured Dr. Ima Belen Fox insisting that paedophiles have precisely the same DNA as crabs. So good. If you haven't seen Brass Eye, I'd highly recommend hunting it down. It's probably on YouTube and stuff. Mike Kayas says, I would love to see you try the new Xiaomi Redmi Watch 4 Global. I've been waiting for a good YouTuber to review it. Hang on, surely you don't class me as a good YouTuber. You must have meant to leave this comment on Mr. Mobile's channel or something. I'm the one who's constantly at least half cut and who swears a lot to cover the fact that he knows absolutely all about tech. I've run out of time, spare me these the last couple of comments. Bry6314 says, Mystic Meg, Points of View and Babe Station takes me back to the good old days of Mr. Motivator, Timmy Mallet and 10p mix-ups being actually 10p. Great days. Am I correct in thinking that Mr. Motivator is already dead? Again, I turn to the wisdom of Google. No, he's very much not dead. He is alive and he's 71 years old. And I tell you what, he's still looking pretty bloody good as well. Like, I think I look more old and haggard, and he's got 30 years on me. In a way, I was kind of hoping he was dead, because then it's just another reason to not even bother with push-ups or sit-ups or anything. Like the perfect excuse to continue my own personal exercise regime of occasionally lifting bacon sarnies and pints to my facial region. But yet more super fresh pop culture references that'll have half the audience staring blank-eyed at the screen. Of course, the other half buggered off ages ago. And let's make this the last one. Aquaro says, can you try Gunfire Reborn as well when you test games? Please don't make me learn a new game, please. I only just started to get out of my comfort zone with Genshin Impact. Like, it was only about a fortnight ago I finally discovered there were boats in the game, so you don't have to bloody walk everywhere. 4 years it took me to find that. I've just looked up Gunfire Reborn, and first line of the wiki, Gunfire Reborn is a roguelike shooter. Didn't even finish the first sentence and already I am out. Roguelite is just another way of saying this game could only possibly be worse if it starred James Corden as a character that you cannot murder or harm in any way. But thank you for your suggestion anyway, and if anyone else has got any fantastic suggestions, questions, comments, whatever, you would like me to read off of a phone and then respond in some sort of half-drunken, slurry, swearing way, well, definitely please smash those down in the wee comments box thing below, and we'll merrily prance our way through as many of those as possible next week. And speaking of next week, what the f*** is next week? Well, next week, come back on Tuesday if you fancy a squint. It's one of the poshest smartphones I've fondled in recent memory. And also, the less drunken of you might have noticed that I finally got my mitts on the Nubia Z60 Ultra, one of the most distinctive looking smartphones, certainly of recent memory. Literally just came in today, so I'm going to slap my SIM in this bad boy and use it as my full-time smartphone for a bit in order to deliver some fine hot content for your viewing pleasure. And of course, next Friday, the usual heap of bollocks that I always stick out at lunchtime. So anyway, have a fan-bloody-tastic weekend, everyone. A massive thanks for not just immediately clicking off this video. I can only assume you're either hammered, drunk, or you suffered from a massive coronary just as the video began, and I'm now just chatting to no one at all. Anyway, please do poke subscribe, ding that notifications bell for more fantastic content like this, and have yourselves I already said the weekend thing. Bye!